Right, so you guys wanted to dive into the top 10 killer battles in history.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, just compiling this list
Oh, yeah.
had me like glued to these books for days.
I got.
Talk about a rabbit hole
Right.
of fascinating but admittedly heavy stuff.
It's a challenge from the get-go, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even begin to measure what makes a battle a killer?
Right.
Is it sheer numbers, the tactics involved, or the ripple effects that lasted for centuries?
Exactly. Which is why for this deep dive,
Okay.
we're focusing on battles that hit on multiple levels of killer.
Okay.
So we'll be looking at the casualty counts that
Right.
make you gasp,
Of course.
but also the strategic brilliance, the brutality, and how these clashes reshaped the world as we know it.
Because sometimes a battle isn't just about who wins on that particular day.
Right.
It's about the ideas, the empires, even the technologies that rise or fall in the aftermath.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a battle that needs no introduction. Stalingrad,
Yeah.
1942 to 1943.
Okay.
Smack dab in the middle of World War II.
Right in the thick of it.
I don't think any list of killer battles would be complete without it.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of urban warfare in Stalingrad is almost unimaginable.
Yeah.
Every street corner, every building
Wow.
became a battleground.
Jeez.
You read accounts of soldiers fighting room to room, hand to hand.
Oh my gosh.
The psychological toll alone must have been immense.
Not to mention the sheer numbers.
Yeah.
We're talking an estimated 1.7 to 2 million casualties.
Wow.
Soldiers, civilians caught in a meat grinder.
Right.
This wasn't just a military clash.
Yeah.
It was a fight for survival on a citywide scale.
Absolutely. And the outcome?
Yeah.
A decisive but Pyrrhic victory for the Soviets.
Right.
It marked a turning point in the war against the Nazis, yes, but at a cost that's almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that even victory can come at a devastating price.
Now, for our next stop, we're going way back in time. 52 BCE to be exact.
All right.
We're talking the Siege of Alesia.
Okay.
Julius Caesar and his Roman legions squaring off against Vercingetorix and the Gallic forces.
And here's where we see killer taking on a different form.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about open battlefield fighting. This siege was a masterpiece, or maybe a nightmare of engineering and strategic patience.
Oh, wow.
Caesar's forces literally built fortifications around the entire city, trapping the Gauls inside.
Talk about a slow burn.
Right.
But killer nonetheless.
Absolutely.
The sources describe the Gauls trapped inside, starving, desperate.
Yeah.
It's estimated that 500,000 or more
Wow.
died or were enslaved as a result.
What's fascinating here is that Caesar's victory at Alesia wasn't just a military triumph.
Okay.
It solidified Roman control over Gaul, essentially laying the groundwork for the expansion of the Roman Empire. One siege.
Wow.
And the course of Western civilization takes a sharp turn.
Okay. Ready for a masterclass in military tactics?
I'm ready.
Because next up, we've got the Battle of Cannae, 216 BCE.
All right.
Hannibal and his Carthaginian army are about to give the Roman legions a lesson they won't soon forget.
Cannae.
Yeah.
If you were studying military strategy, this battle would be on day one of the curriculum.
Wow.
Hannibal, outnumbered but not outmaneuvered, pulls off a textbook encirclement of the Roman army. It's like watching a predator perfectly trap its prey.
And the result?
A bloodbath.
Yeah.
Imagine 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers wiped out in a single day.
Jeez.
The impact of that defeat rippled through the Roman Republic.
Oh, yeah.
Forcing them to completely rethink their military doctrine.
Wow. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
You could argue that the Romans, in losing so spectacularly at Cannae, were forced to adapt to evolve their tactics.
Right.
It's a reminder that sometimes even crushing defeats can plant the seeds for future success. All right, from ancient tactics to the horrors of modern warfare, let's fast forward to World War I and the Battle of the Somme, 1916.
Okay.
If Stalingrad was a meat grinder, the Somme was.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't even know how to describe it.
I've spent a lot of time with these sources.
I bet.
And honestly, words fail to capture the sheer scale of loss and suffering at the Somme.
It's rough.
The imagery of trench warfare, the mud, the barbed wire, the constant bombardment, it's seared into our collective memory for a reason.
Just look at the numbers on the first day of the battle.
Okay.
The British suffered nearly 60,000 casualties.
Oh, my God.
The total for the entire battle, over 1 million.
It's hard to even fathom.
It's a stark reminder of the attritional nature of World War I,
Yeah?
where victories were measured in yards
Right.
and lives were spent like currency.
And that word you were looking for earlier? Perhaps dehumanizing?
Oh, yeah.
The Somme, with its relentless shelling and charges into machine gun fire, represents a point where the technology of war began to outpace our humanity.
So while the Somme was this grinding, brutal slog,
Yeah.
our next battle shows how a single clash early in a war can completely alter its course.
Interesting.
Let's talk about the Battle of the Marne, 1914.
This one was crucial.
Yeah.
Early in the war, the German army was advancing on Paris.
Right.
And it looked like they might achieve a swift victory.
Oh, wow.
The Battle of the Marne stopped them in their tracks. Massive engagements, hundreds of thousands of casualties.
Wow.
But the real impact.
Yeah.
It completely derailed the Schlieffen Plan.
Okay.
Germany's strategy for a quick win in the West.
So they were trying to end it quickly?
Exactly. If they'd succeeded at the Marne, World War I might have looked very different.
Interesting.
Instead, we got the stalemate of trench warfare.
Right.
A 4-year grind that sparred a generation.
Wow. The Marne demonstrates that sometimes the most killer battles aren't about the body count, but about the strategic consequences that ripple out for years to come.
For sure.
Now for a battle on a much smaller scale.
Okay.
But one that's become the stuff of legend.
Right.
Let's talk about Thermopylae.
All right.
480 BCE.
Okay.
You know, Spartans a narrow pass.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of Persians.
Yes. The 300 Spartans.
Right.
Their last stand against the Persian army has captivated imaginations for centuries.
It really has.
It speaks to something deep within us.
Yeah.
This idea of facing impossible odds with unwavering courage.
And it wasn't just blind courage, was it?
No, it wasn't.
The Spartans, along with their Greek allies, chose Thermopylae for a reason.
They did.
That narrow pass essentially negated the Persian advantage in numbers.
Right.
It was a calculated sacrifice, buying precious time for the rest of Greece to prepare.
What's fascinating about Thermopylae is that it wasn't a victory in the traditional sense.
Right.
The Spartans knew they were doomed, yet their defiance, their willingness to die for their ideals, became a rallying cry for the Greek forces, ultimately contributing to their victory in the Greco-Persian Wars.
It's a reminder that sometimes even in defeat, a battle can achieve a kind of killer status.
Right.
It becomes a symbol, a story that transcends the battlefield and continues to inspire long after the dust has settled.
Absolutely. Speaking of clashes that reverberated through history, let's jump to 732 CE.
All right.
And the Battle of Tours.
Okay.
This was a meeting of titans.
Oh, wow.
The Frankish forces, led by Charles Martel, versus the advancing Umayyad Caliphate. Two worlds, two faiths colliding on a single battlefield.
And the stakes.
Massive.
Yeah.
It's often said that the Battle of Tours halted the Islamic Caliphate's advance further into Europe.
Really?
It was a turning point, shaping the religious and political landscape of the continent for centuries to come.
The Battle of Tours is a reminder that killer can have a cultural dimension.
Right.
This wasn't just about territory or resources. It was a clash of civilizations. A struggle for dominance that shaped the very identity of Europe.
For sure.
Right, from the clash of civilizations to the rise of an emperor.
Okay.
Let's talk Napoleon.
Right.
Specifically, the Battle of the Three Emperors, also known as Austerlitz.
Okay.
In 1805.
Right.
This one's a masterclass in tactical genius.
Austerlitz.
Yeah.
The battle where Napoleon outmaneuvered and outfought the combined Austrian and Russian armies.
Wow.
Cementing his reputation as one of history's greatest military minds.
And he inflicted heavy losses, solidifying French dominance in Europe.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that Napoleon's victory wasn't just about brute force.
Right.
He was a master of psychology.
Oh, yeah.
Playing on his opponent's expectations. Leading them into traps of their own making.
And that's why Austerlitz is so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a case study in how battlefield brilliance, the ability to outthink your opponent, can be just as killer as sheer firepower. Napoleon at Austerlitz essentially redefined the art of war.
Now let's bring things closer to the present with a battle that often gets overlooked.
Okay.
But is arguably one of the most brutal and technologically intense clashes of modern warfare.
All right.
The Battle of Hallein, 1991, during the Iran-Iraq War.
Ah, yes, the mother of battles.
Oh.
This was a tank battle of epic proportions.
Really?
A clash of steel and fire that epitomizes the mechanized carnage of modern conflict.
Jeez.
It's a stark reminder that even with all our technological advancements, the brutality of war remains a constant.
And while the battle itself was essentially a bloody stalemate, its significance lies in the sheer scale of destruction.
Right.
The heavy casualties on both sides, and what it reveals about the nature of modern warfare.
It's sobering.
This wasn't a clash of swords and shields. This was industrial-scale slaughter.
Howlett raises some uncomfortable questions about the direction of warfare in the 20th century and beyond. It's a glimpse into a future where conflicts are fought with increasingly sophisticated weaponry.
Right.
Where the human cost is amplified by technology.
From the mechanized carnage of the 20th century, let's journey back to antiquity for our final battle in this first part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We're talking about Gaugamela 331 BCE.
All right.
Where young Alexander the Great face off against the mighty Persian Empire under Darius III.
While the casualties at Gaugamela might pale in comparison to some of the battles we've discussed, its strategic impact was colossal.
Okay.
Alexander's victory paved the way for the collapse of the Persian Empire, ushering in a new era in the ancient world.
Talk about a domino effect.
Right. Yeah.
One battle and an entire empire crumbles.
Wow.
Giving rise to the spread of Hellenistic culture across vast territories.
That's incredible.
It's a testament to the power of a single decisive victory to reshape the world.
And in Alexander, we see another example of a military leader whose killer instinct wasn't just about brutality, but about brilliance. He was a master tactician, a charismatic leader who inspired his troops to achieve the seemingly impossible.
And that perhaps is one of the key takeaways from this first batch of battles.
Okay.
Killer can take many forms.
Yeah.
Sheer numbers.
Yeah.
Tactical mastery. Strategic consequences that echo through time.
It's complex.
And as we delve into the next part of our deep dive, we'll continue to unpack these nuances and uncover the many faces of war.
Looking forward to it. You know, as we've been discussing these battles, what strikes me is that it's easy to get caught up in the grand sweep of history, the rise and fall of empires.
Right.
But we must remember that these battles weren't fought with faceless armies.
Right.
They involved real people.
Of course.
With hopes, fears, and loved ones.
That's so true. It's one thing to talk about casualties as numbers, but it's another to imagine the individual stories of those caught in the crossfire.
For sure.
The soldier charging into machine gun fire.
Yeah.
The families huddled in basements during a siege.
Right.
These battles played out on a human level.
I did.
With consequences that rippled through generations.
Exactly. And that's why I think it's important to explore these battles, not just as historical events, but as human experiences.
Right.
Try to understand the motivations, the sacrifices, the sheer grit and determination that went into each clash.
Speaking of human experiences, I've been thinking about something.
Okay.
As we've been going through these battles.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus on the killer aspect, the devastation.
Right.
But aren't there also stories of incredible resilience, innovation, even moments of unexpected humanity amidst the chaos?
Absolutely.
Really?
War, as terrible as it is, can also bring out the best in people. Acts of courage, selflessness, ingenuity. You find these threads woven throughout even the darkest chapters of history.
I'm thinking, for example, of the medical innovations that emerged from World War I. The horrors of trench warfare spurred advancement in surgery prosthetics, even blood transfusions.
That's right.
It's a stark reminder that human ingenuity can flourish, even in the face of immense suffering.
And it's not just about technological advancements. Think about the camaraderie that forms between soldiers.
Right.
The bonds forged in the crucible of combat. These stories of human connection, of finding hope in the midst of despair, are just as important as the tales of destruction.
It's about finding the glimmers of light, the moments of humanity that shine through even in the darkest of times.
Absolutely.
It reminds us that even in war,
right,
we are not solely defined by the capacity to destroy.
Precisely so. While we acknowledge the terrible toll of these battles, let's also acknowledge the resilience of the human spirit. The capacity for compassion and innovation that persists even in the face of unimaginable hardship.
All right, so we've journeyed through time.
We have.
Explored battles that span centuries and continents.
Right.
What does it all mean for us today?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, it's about understanding that war, for all its changing technologies and tactics, is a tragically recurring theme in human history.
Right.
We've seen it play out from ancient Greece to the battlefields of World War II and beyond.
And while the tools of war have evolved, from swords and shields to tanks and drones, the underlying motivations, the drivers of conflict, seem to persist.
They do.
Power, ideology, resources.
Yeah.
These factors have fueled wars for centuries, and they continue to shape the geopolitical landscape today.
Learning from the past, understanding the patterns that lead to conflict is crucial if we want to break that cycle and build a more peaceful future.
It's about recognizing that history isn't just a collection of dates and names. It's a mirror reflecting our triumphs and our failures, our capacity for both incredible good and unimaginable destruction.
And within that reflection, there are lessons to be learned, warnings to be heeded by studying these killer battles. We can gain insights into the complexities of human nature, the dynamics of power, and the fragile nature of peace.
So looking back at all the battles we've discussed, is there one that stands out to you as particularly relevant?
That's tough.
Yeah.
To the challenges we face in the 21st century, it's tough to choose just one.
Yeah.
But I keep coming back to the Battle of Hallert.
Oh, really?
It encapsulates so many of the trends we're grappling with today.
Like what?
The increasing mechanization of warfare. The blurring of lines between combatants and civilians. The potential for conflicts to escalate rapidly. With devastating consequences.
It's a chilling reminder that the lessons of history are not confined to the past.
That's for sure.
They have a direct bearing on the choices we make today.
Absolutely.
On the paths we choose to forge as individuals, nations, and as a global community.
Precisely. And that brings us to the crucial question.
Yeah. What's that?
What can we as individuals do with this knowledge? How can we turn the lessons of these killer battles into actions that promote peace, understanding, and a more just world?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
Perhaps it starts with simple acts of empathy. Seeking to understand perspectives different from our own. Engaging in respectful dialogue, even when we disagree.
It's about recognizing that the world is interconnected. That our actions have consequences that ripple far beyond our immediate circles.
And maybe, just maybe, by grappling with the complexities of history, by confronting the darkness and seeking out the glimmers of light, we can chart a course toward a future where the echoes of these killer battles are reminders of lessons learned, not tragedies repeated.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have?
Exploring the brutality of war, the strategic brilliance, the human stories that often get lost in the grand narratives.
And as we transition to the final part of our exploration, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think there's a danger in romanticizing these battles? In focusing on the killer aspect without fully acknowledging the human cost?
It's a valid concern. There's a fine line between recognizing the courage and sacrifice of those who fought in these battles and glorifying war itself.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. Appreciating the historical significance without losing sight of the human toll. The families shattered, the dreams extinguished.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
But one worth striving for.
I agree.
Because ultimately the goal isn't to celebrate war, but to understand it, to learn from it, and to work towards a future where such killer battles are relics of the past, not harbingers of the future.
You know, as we wrap up this deep dive into killer battles, I keep thinking about the different ways we measure killer. We talked about casualty counts, strategic brilliance, long-term consequences. But what about the battles that don't make the history books?
Interesting.
The ones whose impact isn't measured in armies lost or empires toppled, but in the slow, insidious erosion of something equally precious.
That's a thought-provoking angle.
You're
talking about the battles fought not on open fields, but within societies, cultures, even the environment itself. The conflicts that leave scars that aren't always visible. But run deep nonetheless.
Exactly. What about the battles waged against poverty, disease, injustice? The struggles for equality, for basic human rights?
I see what you're saying.
These are conflicts that often unfold over generations.
They do.
With victories that are hard-won and easily lost.
And in many ways, these battles are just as killer.
Yeah.
Perhaps even more so.
Right.
Because they chip away at the very fabric of humanity.
Wow.
They challenge our empathy, our sense of shared responsibility.
It makes you wonder if our definition of killer needs to evolve.
Maybe.
To encompass not just the dramatic clashes of armies, but the more subtle, insidious conflicts that threaten our well-being on a deeper level.
Perhaps the most killer battles
are
the ones we fight within ourselves.
Oh, wow.
The battles against apathy, against prejudice, against the temptation to turn away from suffering. That doesn't directly affect us.
It's a challenge to confront those internal battles.
Sure it is.
To acknowledge our own biases and complicity in systems that perpetuate inequality and injustice.
But it's a necessary challenge.
I agree.
Because ultimately, the greatest victories are often won not on battlefields, but in the quiet spaces of our own hearts and minds.
So as we conclude this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of the vastness of history. The countless battles that have shaped our world, both the ones that made headlines and the ones that unfolded in the shadows.
And within that vastness, there's a call to action.
What's that?
A responsibility to learn from the past, to challenge our assumptions, and to engage in the ongoing struggle for a more just and peaceful world.
It's a reminder that history isn't just something we study. It's something we actively participate in. Shaping it with every choice we make, every action we take.
Perhaps the most enduring legacy of these killer battles is the recognition that we have a choice. We can perpetuate cycles of violence and division, or we can choose a different path, one marked by empathy, understanding, and a commitment to building a future.
Where such conflicts are relegated to the history books once and for all.
That's a powerful message to end on. It's been an incredible journey.
It has.
Exploring the complexities of war, the strategic brilliance, the human stories of courage and resilience. We've covered a lot of ground. But this is just the beginning.
There's always more to uncover, more to learn.
I
encourage you to delve deeper into the battles that resonated with you. To explore the conflicts that continue to shape our world today.
And most importantly, to ask yourself, what role will you play in shaping the future?
That's the question, isn't it?
What battles will you choose to fight, and how will you fight them?
Because the fight for a more just and peaceful world is a battle worth fighting, a battle we must all engage in each and every day.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the top 10 killer battles in history.
It's been a pleasure. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and perhaps even a little bit inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.